Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. We're here with the Police Welfare Association and we're discussing the acceptance of the 4% government wage offer in the current negotiation. And just before we continue, I want to draw your attention to a report that was filed by Jason Hollandside today. He spoke with the president of the CSA, Mary Isaac, and you'll hear what she had to say in this report. Let's hear from him.
The Civil Service Association says it's either 9.5% or strike action. Members of the CSE took that decision at an emotionally charged meeting Wednesday, at which the president of the trade union declared that the 4% wage increase being offered by the government is not to anyone's benefit.
They want a response by Friday morning at the time when they will be back with us here at a meeting. And out of that meeting, if they do not get a positive response on their demands, then they are going to strike.
During Wednesday's meeting, members of the CSA presented several motions before the executive. One of them proposed the removal of Cyprian Montrop from the executive, as it was felt that he was not working in the favor of members.
I know the teachers feel our pain. They are also in pain. I know the police, it's the same situation. I also know that the Dental and Medical Association, they have turned down the 4%. I know that the fire people are not happy with the 4% because we had already rejected the 4% as a TUF, so it cannot still be on the table. I know that the prisons, and they are even in worse conditions than some of our own public workers. So I do not see any of these people accepting the 4% when we had already rejected it. It makes no sense.
The Civil Service Association president also accused the Prime Minister of prejudicing the negotiations.
He has said a lot of negative things about public workers. We also believe that him appearing twice in the media and responding to negotiations caused a lot of problems in the negotiation process. It compromised the negotiation process, and as a result, we are saying as a leader, he ought to apologize to the public workers, the same people that serve him every day.
Nonetheless, after all the excitement faded, members stuck to a 9.5% wage increase demand with no additional benefits. Just Tuesday, the teachers voted to accept the 4% wage offer from the government negotiating team with 6 specific conditions, including reclassification and a request for land on concessionary terms. The Police Welfare Association had earlier accepted the government's 4% wage offer and signed a collective agreement to that effect. For the DBS News World, Jason Hollandside reporting.
Thank you very much, Jason, for that report, and you heard that earlier on in our newscast. And I want to just bring you into one point that Mary Isaac made. The fact that, well, the suggestion that the Prime Minister prejudiced the negotiations. What is your feeling on that, coming out and speaking while you were negotiating?
Well, my take on it is very simple and straightforward. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of the country. He has he's responsible for his nation. He addresses his nation. But we have not yet negotiated with the Prime Minister, with the exception of one meeting we had on the 7th of January with the Prime Minister. We've not spoken to the Prime Minister since. We've been at negotiations with the government negotiating team. So this is who we take our, although they take their mandate from him and wherever they get it, yeah? But we have been negotiating with the government negotiating team, and for that matter, we stuck to the negotiation with the government negotiating team. So everything was based on facts presented and all that, and our negotiation was two-party negotiation, which was us and the government negotiating team. So.
We're going to take your calls right now, so we'll put the number up on the screen so that you can contribute. You could also ask questions of the Police Welfare Association, probably some things that I missed out during the discussion that you feel are burning and necessary to ask of them. So the number is on your screen. You could call at any time. You got your benefits, the 6 conditions. Some of the unions accepted them on the condition that these 6 conditions will come into effect. I want you to talk about these 6 conditions, but we'll take this call first. Good evening, caller. Thanks.
Yes, hello. How are you doing?
Very good. You?
Okay, I'm fine.
Good.
I'd like to say good night to Mr. James, Mr. De Leon.
Good night.
Okay, good night. First of all, Mr. James, I would like to publicly thank you, Mr. James, and the rest of my executive for securing the allowances that we, the police, the new allowances that we've never had before. Job well done, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I would like to go into, let me see. We accepted the 4%. I was at the meeting. We accepted the 4% with added benefits with a special clause with reference to owning Crown land. And for the benefit of my members who were not present at that meeting, I believe, and I cannot speak for everybody else, but as a result of after this was said, that's when I saw everyone was at that meeting raise their hands in acceptance of the 4%. That Mr. De Leon stated that the contract will be drawn up in such a way that even if the government were to decide to give the other unions a higher percentage, that despite we signed on the 4, we will be receiving the difference. Is that true, Mr. De Leon?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's correct. So I'd like my members to hear that.
Yes.
Then there's this other situation where there are colleagues of mine who are saying that the amount of officers present at that meeting, gentlemen, could not constitute a quorum. Thereby, whatever decision that was taken where we signed on this collective agreement would make it null and void. Can you say something on that?
Are you still there? Oh, we happened to lose his call, but if he can call back, he was talking about the collective, the quorum.
That is very straightforward. For the benefit of all police officers, and I encourage police officers to read and know their rights. For our purposes, the Police Welfare Association, in fact, the association is a creature of the Police Act. A quorum does not exist, okay, in the Police Act. There is no requirement, okay, that speaks, there's no provision that speaks to the requirement of a quorum for holding any meeting. That's the first thing. And I challenge anybody to find it for me. So people are just speaking and they're really uninformed. They don't do their research. As far back as I could remember, how we operate basically is very straightforward. When we call a meeting, we normally hold it at the police auditorium. We gauge based on the turnout. Normally, once we have about 3/4 going towards full, to the auditorium being full, we continue for our meetings. What's important is for the president or vice president, whoever is chairing the meeting, to be satisfied that the turnout is sufficient to justify holding the meeting. And then it continues. But there is no provision in law articulating that there must be a quorum of 1/5 of your membership or 1/6. There's absolutely nothing. It doesn't speak to it. So we use our best judgment once we think that those who turn out represent the different stations and departments. Since we bus our officers around from Viewfort, one bus comes on the East Coast, the other the West Coast. We take officers from station to station. Once we look and we assess and we see, okay, we have SSU Viewfort, Marine Unit Viewfort, those from the station, Soufre, Labrie, Choiseul, because we know our officers. Once there is sufficient representative across the board, and normally our auditorium is packed. We go ahead for our meeting. And
by
that
the time
said we had officers all outside.
Yes.
So there isn't an issue really. I just have not gone into it because I realize a lot of people speak and they have no idea. They don't do their research. But there's no requirement of a quorum. I have not seen it.
We have a call on the line. Good evening. Thanks for holding. Please go ahead. Oh, we lost that call. So that is a moot point. That point of having a quorum to satisfy the decisions that
and we encourage our officers who are in doubt, come to the welfare office.
Yeah, the office is open.
But it's also interesting from what Mary Isaac was saying in that report as well, that the SLTU headed by Julian Monrose has accepted the 4%.
Yes.
And the TUF headed by Julian Monrose has not accepted the 4%. There seems to be some contradiction in that. From what we have heard also, the correctional officers have accepted. But we have a call. Good evening, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. James and DeLeo,
Yes, sir.
I know it's not an easy job that you have, and especially Mr. James, I know the talk has gone that you have sold out the police. But like Mr. DeLeo was saying, sometimes we are not informed of situations and we make accusations. However, what I need to find out from you, Mr. James, I know you said that you operate on facts that were presented.
Yes.
But what is the difference between these negotiations and our previous negotiations where the facts were given that things were not good and things were tight, but yet still 14.5% was pursued vis-a-vis now?
Yeah.
So what has changed? Because the things have not improved significantly, and yet facts were presented the last time, but we stood fast.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, very good question.
Yeah, very good question. And one thing that has changed is that the presidency of the Police Welfare Association has
I'll
changed.
probably be able to help with that.
Yes,
I
and
was there.
Mr. DeLeo would probably be able to help with that. But I was not in that aspect of the negotiation. I came on towards the end where we just signed off on our collective agreement. Because the Police Welfare Association, we have, we change executive annually. You know, so that was the issue. But that has changed, and Mr. Leo will be able to take you back to the
that period.
14.5. But at this period, I could tell you the facts and everything that was presented is what we went by.
We have another call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night,
Good
sir.
night. Good night.
Yes, does it should as on this mega line?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. James a question there.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
please go ahead. I think you listen to us on your television. Please turn down the volume on your set and just listen to us from your telephone.
Cut.
Okay. Go ahead. The 40%, that's a very good question. How come you accepted or you pushed for 14.5%? Let's take that call first. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Hello?
Hello, good night.
Yes, please go
Hi,
ahead.
good night.
Yes, sir. Yes, hello, good night.
Yes,
Good night.
good evening. Please go ahead.
Yes, I am calling from the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to ask Mr. James just 3 questions. How much money did the risk allowances, the special military and band allowance, plus the other allowances accrued to?
You have to take everything into context. There are 2 allowances that benefit all our members, and that is the high risk allowance. No, only one allowance for that matter.
Yeah.
That is beneficial to all police officers. That is the high risk allowance of $75.
No, but when you say take it into context, we're looking at the amount that you all received for all these allowances. You said you got 3 new allowances.
4
new allowances.
In addition to
How much
departments.
these 4 new allowances accrued to, in addition to the other
yes,
allowances
but this
that
is
you
why
all
I'm
had?
putting it into context for you. It is in relation to different departments. So what is very what I could really speak to is what that benefits the entire police force, which is the high risk allowance of $75. This is it.
So how much these things came to?
Well,
How much is it?
Okay, what he is saying is that the high risk allowance would accrue to every uniformed officer. The special military allowance
Only for 2
would accrue
departments.
to the SSU department and the Marine unit. The
Yes.
bandsman allowance will
To the
only
band.
accrue to
To the band.
members of the band. And
Yes.
the last one would be the prosecutor's allowance would be police prosecutors, if I'm understanding
Yes,
this
yes,
correct.
yes, you're right.
So,
So-
how much money was allocated.
So you want a breakdown for each
Yes.
one? Okay, so let's
Yes.
go through it. The risk allowance you said was $75. The special military allowance
It's
Yes.
$75.
is 75. The bandsman allowance
$50.
50, and the prosecutor's allowance
500 annually.
500 annually.
Divided by 12.
You divide it by 12, that
41,
is
40 something dollars.
yeah, that's less than $50. Does that answer your question, caller?
Yes, it has.
Okay, do you
I
have
have another
a further
question for my host,
Okay.
Mr. Reynolds.
Yes, sir.
Yes, do you have any information with respect to the IMF as to whether the IMF has ever sanctioned or endorsed any increases for public servants in St. Lucia or the Caribbean, by large?
Do I have any information as to whether they have? No,
Yes,
no, I
because
don't have.
I know you made an allusion to restraint.
Yeah, I actually read from the report. That's what I did. I did not make any allusion. I read from the report that
Yes,
they
you read
produced
from
for
the
2012.
report. But we have previous reports showing, and we have documents also where the IMF has never ever sanctioned an increase for public servants in St. Lucia or the Caribbean.
Well, I would agree with you, but I would also say that whatever picture that they painted as far as our economy and the external shocks that we experienced to our economy in the last year was reflected in what they said. And they said as a result of these external shocks and what is happening on the global level, then these measures must be taken to ensure that St. Lucia does not end up like Jamaica and Dominica and in the hands or at the mercy of the IMF. And part of that is bringing the debt burden under control. As I was going through some of it with these two gentlemen, we are at 12% of our GDP is debt, and 78% of our help me out with that, because yes, we have 78% in a particular category. Okay.
Yes, of wages. Yeah, the 78% of wages.
Anyway,
Right.
hello.
Yes, so yes.
Anyway, my issue really is, and I want to make it clear that the fire service at the subordinate ranks level only received approximately, the first instance got $60
For
all their allowances,
is that what was negotiated by your representatives?
despite the association justifying and putting necessary proposals with respect to even high risk. The government negotiation team did not see merit in the fire service getting high risk allowance.
Would you equate the risk that the fire service officers run with that of the police?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And it's even worse. Every time the police responds to an emergency, the fire service is there.
Okay.
And even more, the fire service is exposed to pathogens and all kinds of contaminants.
Okay.
You should understand that. We have blood contaminants. We have issues of fire contaminants. We have different pathogens that we are exposed to.
And that was articulated to the GNT,
Of
you're
course,
saying?
and the GNT did not see merit in the fire service getting a high-risk allowance.
Well, hopefully we can have members of the GNT on a subsequent show where we can ask them those questions and why the disparity in what was given to the police and what was given to the fire service.
Anyway, I want to compliment my counterpart from the police for their position. However, there is the need for everyone to have this common goal when it comes to interest of working conditions and salary increases and so on. And I am looking forward. I don't think that there is the need for this kind of disintegration in the TUF, because divide and conquer, even within our system as the fire service and police and the uniform protective services, it has shown itself to be something that is in the negative and doesn't show itself to be something of worth and for development of this country.
All right, thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
your
much,
contribution.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say something to the caller. And I could tell you, for the last 3 years, I have tried to convene a meeting and with the protective services, because protective services are the police, the fire, the correctional, and also the ports police. And I've tried my best to form a protective services federation, which would give us more teeth to go to the TUF or whatever, but we've not been able to get on the ground. But that would basically strengthen our position.
And just after this call, you'll tell us why that is the case. Good evening, caller. Thanks for holding. Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I am listening to the discussion, and I am really, really baffled at what the negotiating team has offered to the police and firemen. And I really find it hard to understand how those men could accept that kind of offer on behalf of their employees. These are the persons that they represent. And I have sat and listened, and what I see is that those men are really advocating the cause of the negotiating team rather than the cause of the members that they were supposed to represent.
And why do you say
that?
Now,
because I listened to Mr. DeLeo, and his position is really in defense of the government's position, when in fact he should be negotiating for his members. You understand? And I have a serious problem with that. You tell me you're going to accept a high-risk allowance of $75 for policemen when people get travel allowances of $500. $75 cannot even pay a doctor's visit now. And you're going to accept this on behalf of your members. This is ridiculous. This is unacceptable. And I really, really think that you have failed your members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your response to that, I very, very heated and pointed attack at you. 75%, it seems like a little...
Yeah, well, I could speak to that is straightforward. $75 might appear to be little. But the reality is that we have fought and struggled for years
over 25
to even
years.
get it on the books. Yes.
For 2 departments.
You see, there's a different reality. We understand. We have
and that's $75 monthly?
That's monthly.
Yeah, monthly. Officers who have been shot dead. We have, I mean, when it comes to risk, we know what we're talking about. And the reality is that after so many years, we were able to not just get high risk, but get a number of allowances that we've been advocating for the longest while. This is a triumph. And we're into our next triennium.
In 19 days. 19 days.
We're in a position to negotiate and get more. That's the reality. You just heard the fire service, how they tried to get high risk and who knows whatever allowance, and they weren't able to get it. Just getting it on the book is tremendous. And probably some other workers from other areas may not understand or appreciate what we've been through over the years just to get certain allowances. And we have it.
Let's just take this call before you continue. Good evening, thanks for holding.
Yes, Clinton.
Yes, sir.
Two things. The difference between, they asked the gentleman a question I didn't answer. I may be able to help a little bit. The difference between what happened a few years ago with the negotiation was that the then Minister of Finance agreed with the union to pay the 14%.
That's true.
This present Minister of Finance is saying the country cannot afford it. So that is a massive difference.
No, but you can appreciate too, caller, that during the last administration, and we have to be fair, okay? Let's not look at stuff with stained glasses. That the unions had indicated the willingness and the desire to go and strike if they were not given what they had demanded, the 14.5%. And every union was ready to call its members out and down tools if they had not been given that amount. So we have to be real about that situation. And you're looking at me perplexed.
Clinton,
I am perplexed.
Clinton,
yes, go ahead,
the fact remains that the union did not strike or put a grant to the head of the Minister of Finance for him to agree
But it was
to
under
pay
duress.
the 14%.
But it was
What
under
they
duress.
were angry about was the fact that he just went ahead and said, I'm unable to pay without meeting them. And they said, Mr. Prime Minister, the agreement, there's a clause in the agreement that states if any party, right, has an issue with the agreement, they should come back to the table. He did not do that. So that's a big difference.
Okay.
And the caller, finally, the caller a while ago, I think what she missed in all of that is affordability. And we have to understand, while the unions were given the 14%, we are presently paying for this. Because you just about a 78% of our deficit of GDP. The GDP is so high, we have a $250 million deficit. It's as a result of this payment. You would go ahead and give another 14%, and down the road you have $500 million deficit. It's not what the police officers worth a lot more than the $75. But they have been preaching, and the sergeant have been preaching from day one, affordability. That's the new word. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution.
Yes, I'm proud of the call.
Well, we're due for a break, so we'll take a quick one. When we come back, we'll continue with your calls and some comments from the Police Welfare Association representatives. Don't go away.